My name's Mike Runge. Most of you know me as Sharon's husband, which is a fine way to be known. Sharon and I and our kids have been members of St. John's since late in the last millennium, and I've had the privilege of serving on vestry a couple times. In the last 18 months, I've actually spent time on the COVID committee and on the Stewardship committee, which puts me in the awkward position of having told you you can't come to church for the last year and then turning around and asking you for money, which is what I'm going to do, is ask you for money today. The short version of this talk is please pledge generously, please pledge today. It'll make you feel good. All of you in the church today have within arm's length a pledge card. If you want to take a look at it, there's a little logo there. Those of you online, I'm sure, can find this logo for our stewardship campaign someplace. Our theme this year was compassion, care, community, thinking about the ways we have cared for each other and cared for our community throughout this pandemic time. There's also a little tagline under it that says a circle of graces. And in the talks that you've heard from the Stewardship Committee over the last 4 weeks, we've talked about graces, these mysterious, spiritual, sacred ways that we have of experiencing God. Brian Stone led it off, set the bar very high, talking about prayer as a grace. Anju Chen eloquently talked about worship as a grace we're given, as an opportunity we have to celebrate God's existence and be together to do that. Lauren Brown talked about service as a way to meet God. Ken Wireman last week talked about stewardship of God's creation, our understanding of our role as caretakers of this world, and his learning over his life about what that means. And I'm going to talk to you today about giving itself as a grace, giving as an opportunity, as a blessing for us to give back to the world what God has given us. This is my favorite time of year. I wore a maple leaf tie in celebration of it. The period in particular between November and Christmas I love. The gatherings with family, the food, and I'm not going to apologize, the cold weather. I grew up in Vermont. I love the cold weather. And even the shortening of the days as we enter sort of the contemplative period of winter. Sharon and I also do a lot of our charitable giving. Okay, it's the end of the tax year. That's what's kind of motivating us to get it done. But to me, it makes a lot of sense to think about charitable giving, particularly in this period between Thanksgiving and then Advent. So we have this ritual where we find a half a day sometime in that period, and we take the basket where we've thrown all the envelopes that have come in the mail over the year, and we take that basket out. And if you know me, you know I've got a spreadsheet. So I've got a spreadsheet, and we kind of reconcile this basket of envelopes with the spreadsheet. And then, where they'll allow us to actually write checks anymore, we sort of handwrite that really tactile feel of giving. But in the course of that, we think about these organizations that we give to, these organizations that we love because we love their mission, we love what they do, they speak to us, we think that they're changing the world in ways that matter. So the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the Doctors Without Borders, St. Francis High School in Louisville, Kentucky, where I used to work, Kenya Connect, of course, Helping Up Mission, which is a homeless shelter in downtown Baltimore. One of my favorites, the Chesapeake Shakespeare Company, which is a small theater in downtown Baltimore that makes Shakespeare come alive for kids and adults. And realizing as we're writing these checks and doing this giving that we're blessed to be in the position to have the opportunity to give back to the world what God has given us. Of course, the same thing goes for pledging and for thinking about giving to St. John's. And I've actually always loved stewardship season. I know that seems weird, but I'd like this time of thinking about what does this community mean to me? How does this community help me be closer to God? What is this community doing? What compassion and care is it showing? And how can my gifts, how can I give back the blessings I've been given to show that love that God has shown me? So I'm asking you today to pledge generously to St. John's. Ann Corbett, last week at the town hall, shared with you a God-sized budget that the vestry's put together. And we've done the budgeting process differently this year. We wrote the budget we want before we knew what the pledges were going to be. Usually we wait for the pledges to come in and say, okay, well, here's the pledges. What can we What can we spend this year? We did it backwards, and we did that deliberately because we have dreams, we have aspirations for what we want this church to be. And that budget's 25% bigger than it was last year. That's a big increase, but there's things we want to do. We would like to increase the clergy staff. We want to increase the staff to support children's faith formation. Mike Sommels will tell you we need a new air conditioner in the historic church. There's mundane things and there's sacred things all rolled up in this budget, and this allows us to be the St. John's that reaches out to the community and the world the way that we care for. And honestly, we don't really have a plan of how we're going to increase pledges by 25%. There is no plan B. We wrote this budget, and we're hoping by the grace of God and your pledges that with faith we'll be able to do the things that we're called to do. So please, give generously to support this community so that we can show the care and compassion to the rest of the world that God has shown us. Thank you.